I didn't expect so many people. And Aaron, wow, that's so cool. Yeah, I didn't expect so many people. I thought it's still vacation time. So yeah, I'm very glad to see you all. Let's wait 1, 2 more minutes and then we can start. And I'll set up my things. By the way, Alex, would you like to do some announcements regarding CKAN 3 product strategy, or you prefer to not do it right now?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking. So basically, the interview stage is over. 36 or 37 interviews actually. So the last one was with the guys from Taiwan. I just found them by Googling CKAN instances, and they were really nice, interesting team that shared owner perspective. And so the current iteration of interviews is done, and I'm in on analysis of what we can take from this interview. So basically structuring. It would be a preliminary, presentation next next Tuesday for the core development team. That would be first. Most likely, I will go through the mural boards where all the assets are with, say, preliminary story. But then I will be forming a kind of more coherent way to communicate the research findings and the strategy implications. And then it would be our job to define where to go. So define product vision, define product strategy, and basically form a roadmap based on the direction that we will take. From what I see right now, there are around 5-10 different directions that product could take. But some are more or less more prominent, I'd say. Yeah, so you will find it out next Tuesday. Stay tuned.
Sounds awesome. You said 27th you're going to have a presentation with the tech team, right?
Yeah, on the core tech meeting. It happens 3 p.m.
Right. Yeah, looking forward to some exciting things after that. Yeah, and thanks for your work. Definitely. Okay, my suggestion is to kick off. There are still people joining. Let me admit. Yeah, let's kick it off. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, and thank you for joining our CKAN Monthly Live. I'm really happy to see so many people. That's beyond my expectations. September is sort of working month, but I thought you're still on a vacation mode. So I'm happy to see so many familiar faces. Before I tell you more about our guests today and give them the opportunity to present themselves, as usual, I would like to share some interesting events coming up in September and October. The first one, actually, this one is a bit ongoing now. This is the AI and Big Data Expo, which is currently ongoing yesterday and today. I'm not sure how useful that would be, but just wanted to mention it because it's a big event. The next thing is European Research and Innovation Days, which will be on September 28th and 29th. The aim of the event is to bring together policymakers and researchers, entrepreneurs, and explore, like, to discuss research and innovation in Europe and beyond. If you want to explore more about the program, here it suddenly started raining super hard, and now I'm going to get wet very soon. So if I suddenly disappear or something, don't be surprised. yeah, if you want to explore more about the program, I will drop the link to this presentation in a minute, so you'll be able to explore more. The next event I'd like to share is the European Code Week, which will be in October. The aim of the event is to inspire development of coding and computational thinking skills. So the agenda for today is we do the introduction round, which is currently ongoing. Then we have the presentation, then the Q&A session. If we have some community announcements and sharing, this is the time, our fourth part, and then at the end we have a quick closing round. I will drop a link to the meeting doc. As usual, I encourage everyone to open the meeting doc, put your name, affiliation, what brings you to CKAN. In the meeting doc, you can find links if you want to suggest a topic for next meetup, or if you want to add some things to the agenda. I'll keep an eye on all that.
Joanna, you have a problem with internet connection?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that, given that Joanna's frozen and she actually left the meeting, I suggest that we go ahead and Luis, if you can start with your presentation, that would be great. If then Joanna joins back and has anything to add, she will just jump in and do so, just for the sake of not losing people's time.
Yeah, I think Luis probably just have to do an introduction of yourself. I think she was planning to introduce you.
Yeah, no worries. I'll share my screen and I'll start introducing myself. Hello, everyone. Good morning, evening, afternoon. I know it's a global community, so trying to cover all the time zones. My name is Luis Ocaranza. I'm a technical advisor at Vital Strategies. And I'm going to talk to you today about an extension that we developed in collaboration with Etopian for CKAN to make data more visually attractive for the public. We gave it the name of via data just to try to identify it in some way, but it started originally as just a query data visualization tool. But let me give you just quickly a quick brief of
So sorry to interrupt, just to say that I'm back. I'm sorry for this technical issue. As I said, this is the rain, and the rain got really aggressive, so it keeps me out of the network. Sorry about that. I'm here and everything is well. So go ahead.
Thanks, Joanna. So as I think Joanna was starting to mention, and Vital Strategies is a public health organization. We're a nonprofit organization based out of New York, but we have offices in different places nowadays: Brazil, Singapore, India, China, and Paris as well. And our objective is, to help to collaborate with governments to strengthen their public health systems. And we have different interventions, and different programs. And our goal is to improve the use of data and of programs and policies that can help inform decision making. We're a relatively young organization. We started in 2016, but our footprint has grown steadily, and we're very happy with our progress. More specifically, one of the programs in which we developed this extension for CKAN is called the Data for Health Initiative. We're now in our 9th or 8th year, of the initiative. It's an initiative that started with the Bloomberg Philanthropies and the Australian Department of Foreign Trade. And the specific goal of this initiative is to really focus on the use of data. Right? We know public health and after COVID, I think everyone has heard a little bit of public health and epidemiology and all the different data sources. But many countries collect this data and it just stays on their servers or on their Excel spreadsheets, and it never really gets to be used either for internal or external use. So in this context is where we kind of feed into how can all this data that's collected, that sometimes is requested and accessed by researchers, journalists, or just the general public, be shared in a more easy way with the layperson, right, like a general audience. So that's why we developed what we're calling VIA data. VIA comes from trying to use the visual, interactive, and accessible. It's an extension that tries to target the public health practitioners within public health organizations like ministries of health, institutes of public health, or provincial departments of health, etc., that they have, among many of their tasks, the opportunity to share data that they collect and analyze it in a simple and easy way. We know there's many tools out there, and some of them require advanced knowledge, some of them require expensive licenses, and we wanted to take advantage of something that's public, that's open source, and that can be easy to use for them. So that's why we partnered with Atopian and developed this extension with the objective of making existing data easy to publish, to make it more visually attractive, so rather than just publishing tables, make it interactive, so you're not just looking at one data point and not being able to do more with it, and accessible in the sense of, it's there, you don't have to log in, you don't have to ask for multiple credentials, you don't have to request the data to the ministry, you can just openly access it. And there are two type of things that we refer to as that you can do with VIA data. One is a data access portal in the sense of making it easy to find a specific fact, right? You have a lot of detailed data, you have long tables, multiple causes of death, or multiple information on public health issues, and you want to make all these long data sets just easily accessible. Publish the data, present some key facts through visualizations, have some simple text and interpretation, but mainly allow the user, the people, to access the data and download it and get some key facts up front. The other option is what we're calling more of an interactive report, right? Where on top of having those visualizations, you add a little bit more of information, a bit more of explanation, trying to tell more of a specific story rather than letting the user find their own story. We wanted to be able via data to be able to present both like charts, which are the main type of data visualizations, but also include some of these supporting elements like text and images or maps even, right? So what are the key characteristics of the things that you can do with this extension? They're public tools, right? This is meant to be used with data that can be shared publicly and that's ready, that has been processed, is de-anonymized. You cannot identify people even by secondary characteristics. So it's data that has been processed, usually aggregated and ready to be shared with the public. We don't focus on raw data, especially when it comes to surveys or some other national registries. And the second one is that it has to be interactive, right? It is best suited to allow and facilitate access and navigation of data that has multiple data points, that has multiple filters, like larger data sets or medium to larger data sets, whatever the metric is used to define those. Because again, often we've seen partners that come with like 20 rows of data and simple, very, very simple indicators, and they want to use this tool. But while it can be done, it's usually going to be a static report because the data itself is not that much that you're going to be able to filter through it or to be able to have additional interaction. And finally, what via data is not, right? It's not a dashboarding tool. Just because we present data visualizations, we're not trying to replace internal tools like Tableau or Power BI or some of the other business intelligence tools that focus on providing those key insights for internal decision making. And then the second thing, it is not a infographic tool. Right? It's not a tool meant to be highly customizable, and I want to make these specific static reports, super detailed, change all the colors and all the layouts and all of that. It's meant to try to accommodate as many different topics and data sets as possible. And we've done some compromises between what you can customize in this tool versus what you cannot. And it's precisely because the more we allow for people to customize, the more complicated the tool gets, and the less user-friendly for those that have limited technical capacities to use. So that's just a long introduction. And finally, two things that I'll mention is we think of via data as having two components, right? The main CKAN managed data, like upload all this data repository, and then the extension itself that allows you to add reports, create charts, add elements, configure things a little bit. So I'm going to see if this works. Yeah. So this is how the tool itself looks like. We have created a couple of demo sites. This one particularly is using a non-communicable risk factor data that comes from WHO that's used in multiple countries. And as you can see, it's organized by the different topics that this survey collects. So collects information on alcohol consumption and cholesterol, diabetes, and so on. The way the tool is organized, this is like what the public will see. You can see the different topics that we have created. These are fully customizable. You can change the icon, you can change the name, and create as many folders or groups as you want to organize your data. And then within each one of them, you can have multiple specific reports. Right? In this case, it's a demo. We only have one in the vital steps. But we can have multiple reports, and then one of them, in this case, once you click on this report, on the left side, we always have like our main filter panel. On the right side, like a main visualization, and then some other supporting text, tables, and we have created here this template that presents information for one indicator around alcohol consumption that's broken down by different sociodemographic characteristics. Right? So it's broken down by sex, by age groups, by sex and age at the same time, and in this case by urban-rural. Right? So we present all this information in a single view. That's one of the purposes, is you can look at this and try to make comparisons. You can select your different indicators and the data will update. You have the option to download this data itself in different formats if you want to do something more with it. You can share this as the link or embed this view somewhere else as well. And within these charts, which are the main elements, right? You can also download it as a screenshot, take a screenshot of the image, and the library that we're using, allows you to zoom in and have some little interactivity with it as well. We have created multiple reports with it. For example, this is excess death surveillance from COVID-19 in Senegal. This is an example of data. It's not the real data. And we just want to present, how data compares to the average. This is for the public to see, oh, right, there's like an actual gap Again, a very simple report. The data itself is very simple. It has a second report that presents comparisons. And the objective, again, is for the public to quickly come see and say, okay, I see that people 60 plus is where the real toll of excess deaths are compared to, perhaps under 15 years. And this is like a monthly example of the data. And again, you can explore the data in different ways. We have also added functionality for maps using GeoJSON files. So if you upload your geographic boundaries, and you can link the geographic boundaries to your main data sets, and you can create some simple curve-flat maps. This is an example of Brazil. Again, using example mortality data, and you can see how it varies across different provinces or states in Brazil. And you can combine these elements, right? We have another chart here that's the same data, just in a regular format. So this is what the public sees. And in terms of what the internal users creating these reports see, is your common CKAN management data repository, where you can upload data, you can add the different resources and all the metadata. You all probably are familiar with this. And perhaps the most interesting thing is where you actually go and design the reports. Right? So in this case, I have 6 groups. These are the different folders that how you can organize your data for the public consumption. And within each one of these, we have different reports that we have created. So again, using the example of Brazil, we have the top 10 causes of death, we have a detailed of the causes of death, and we have the map, the geographic exploration. How do you create reports? I'm going to edit one for business, but you add a new report, you enter the title, some key description, additional information for the user to guide, like in this case, we're using for instructions, the little icon that's going to show up, on the main page. Where is it going to be organized? Or what it will say the metadata of it. You can select your actual data set and specific resource that you will be using in this report. The numeric variables that you will be presenting. So we also have the option to change, right, what the y-axis of a chart will be. In this example, we're allowing for total number of deaths, the actual mortality rate, or proportional mortality, which are the 3 most common mortality metrics in public health. The public filters that the user will see. So in this case, we've organized mortality by 3 types or 3 levels of cause of death. And you select the state, right? And you can add multiple filters. We recommend to try to keep it to 5 or less, just for user experience. Then you go and edit your visualizations, and you can see that all of this is drop-down menus, is checkboxes, is markdown for the text. So we're trying to keep it as easy and with less coding as possible for someone in a health department to just open this tool and they can pretty much use it, they can learn it very quickly. There's not that many specifics that you need to know. Once you go into the add or edit visualizations, we have our 5 types here: charts, which are the main ones, maps that I just showed you, text boxes to just enter general information, images, just if you want to, make this a logo or some other information, and then tables, which are also the common way. And I'll focus on charts just to show you, because it's the most used element and it's also the one that has the most options. So we've organized all the different customization options into these like collapsible menus, starting from the most basic, selecting what type of chart you're going to present, what's the dimension, right? It's going to be on the x-axis. If you want to have a dual, you can select a second category. What's the title? The title is dynamic. So depending on what the measure you select is how the title is going to show. You can add some description at the bottom of the chart as well if you want. In this case, because we selected a spline or a line chart, you have the option to change the width and the type, whether it's dash or solid and so on. You can change the color. We have like a color picker. You can modify your x-axis, whether you want to have a title, hide the title, or add a different title. Make this also dynamic if you want it to be based on user selections, and some of the basic customization options like the orientation of the label, how many of these ticks you want to show, and so on. Similar for the y-axis, right? The title and whether we want to force it from starting from 0 or not. It's helpful sometimes for the correct visualization of certain variables. Some additional options that apply to the entire chart, right? If you want to sort the data from ascending, descending, or so on, how you want the data to be presented, if you want to have percentages or decimals, and so etc. We have some more advanced, I'll say, options. So, for example, if you want to show confidence intervals, which can be important for certain metrics in public health or in research, you can add the confidence intervals here. They have to be included in your data so that you're able to display them. And also you have some like static or dynamic reference lines if you want to put like a maximum, an average, things like that. And the optional filter this is helpful if you want to have a filter that does not apply to the entire data set, but just to this specific chart that will be on top of those global filters. So you have, you see the text boxes that are very simple. You just type in, you can modify with Markdown, or we have also activated some HTML information. So this is what we have developed. Again, everything is drop-down menus, everything's checkboxes. We're trying to make it as simple as possible for someone that has been using Word and Excel all their lives to feel comfortable using this. Right? It's not that much different. We're trying to keep some of the language, some of the options. And just like I mentioned before, we made some compromises. So there, I want to have this at a 23-degree angle, and I want to make the chart, a specific size, and I want this color to be changing based on, time of day. I don't know, whatever super highly customized options, they're not here, and that's because the more you go into those details, this chart will only work for that specific data that you're presenting. Right? If you want to add an annotation here, you want to make a point. At that point, you are making a very detailed chart that if you update the data, it will not look nice. So we try to make that compromise between how much information you can add versus and how specific to your data source it can be, while also keeping it dynamic. So if you add a new year here, which is our hope that you update this data regularly for public consumption, the platform itself must be available to handle it. I'll stop here, and I see some comments. The last thing I'll add, perhaps, just quickly, sorry, is we started implementing it in Shanghai and Shandong in China, and also in the Philippines. We're working on it for Cambodia and Senegal, as I mentioned. We've had good success. Governments have liked it. there's some key challenges and lessons, and as I'm sure you all that work with data and making it available to the public. The availability and sensitivity for sharing the data is a recurring topic, right? Is understanding how this is public and what does it mean. Even though they want to share data, it's still a concept that's still permeating in government areas. We require not only the IT, experts, the server experts, but also the data and the subject experts to say, this is how you present mortality data. And finally, that there's IT governments, at least the ones that we've worked with, have less flexibility in terms of the environments that they use, the way they want to install servers, and they're I think they're a lot more cautious of how and when this type of platforms, especially when it comes to sharing data, are installed. And I think that's just through collaboration and working with them to understand what the tool can and cannot do that we've been successful to implement it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am suggesting we open the floor for a Q&A session. So if anybody has some questions, feel free to share your question. You can raise your hand and go ahead. You can drop things in the chat, whatever you prefer. In the chat, I can see from Aaron some compliments about the UI.
Thank you. Yeah.
And a question from Jonas regarding if it is open source.
Yes, yes, it is. It is open source. I believe all the libraries are like PHP, Python, Plotly. All of this is free, and the actual extension itself is also like open source. I believe the repository is available through the Topian. I see.
I'll drop the link in chat.
Thanks, Michael. Aaron, I see your question on getting requirements. So one of the biggest challenges we faced is a very basic one, which is Linux servers, right? Many governments in low and middle income countries have been using historically Windows servers, Windows machines, just because out of accessibility and Microsoft being everywhere and providing them with very digestible contracts. It has been, I think, the biggest challenge to inform them about how these platform actually runs on a license-free server, like a Linux-based server, and introducing them to what many governments are getting more open nowadays about cloud servers as a viable option for maintaining their this type of applications. It's been, so far we've been trying to find that middle ground between them having a physical server to control within their environment. Some of them have stronger IT environments, and some require more support. And in that case, I think cloud servers have been a good option. That's perhaps the biggest challenge. In terms of after that, I think it's been relatively easy to move on with the requirements.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ravi is saying, can we fit multiple data sets to power a visualization report? Yes, you can use different data sets, up to 3 different data sets. The way they will work is we have the main report that we have that I presented, and then you can essentially append or add at the bottom additional reports that, from a public perspective, it'll look as one report with different sets of filters, and you can add the main report plus up to 3 additional reports, and those additional reports will essentially be its own thing, pulling data from a different place. So yes, you you could, for example, present mortality information by cancer as the main report, and then you can have tobacco consumption as a second data set that is presented in a different way below it. And if you have something else about hospitalizations for respiratory diseases, you can also have that as a third report. And just to say that while our focus is on public health, there's nothing that prevents this from being used for other public data.
Thank you. Joe, you can go ahead if you want.
And let's see how we target regular users. Yes, that was our main goal, and it's been a challenge to find that, again, as I mentioned, that middle ground between having a lot of options. Right, when you see data visualizations, you want a lot of options, but keeping it simple enough that one, it can be configured through menus, and Michael Osahon and the whole Datopian team have been working very hard to help us find that, like, what can actually be created through a simple user interface, and what are those key options that should be available, because you will always need them and should apply to multiple data sets.
All right, we have a question from Fergo. You can go ahead if you want. You're muted though.
Excuse me. The general question is around, of all industries, healthcare is reputed to be one that's very closed, because you've got a lot of very big application providers whose business kind of focuses on keeping data within the four walls of their private health networks, locked away so that others don't and can't use the data. So big companies like Cerner, now owned by Oracle, or Epic, a private company, or there's a bunch of other companies. But of all sectors, it's reputed not to be very good at sharing data or open data. Have you come across this? Is it mainly statistical data sources that you've targeted? Or was there any live data sources that you try to get directly from the core of the health systems for the countries that you're working with?
Right. Thanks, Aurel. And yes, you're right. As I mentioned, one of the key challenges is the sensitivity and availability of data. Right. We all know in the US and other European countries and so on, there's strict regulations about sharing public health, health data in general, which is the individual data is the core of aggregated health statistics for public health planning. Our work has been mainly with government agencies, so ministries of health or institutes of public health, national statistics office. And therefore our work with, they deal with getting the data. They enforce the regulations, and they ask private providers, right? By law, you should be sharing with me aggregated data or anonymized data for my public health, planning and so on. So we haven't dealt with private companies or entities that own many of these live services. We've worked in connecting the platform to live data sources, and while it works, it's like I mentioned, sometimes, or the objective of the platform is to share data that's ready to be made public. And sometimes with these live data sources, when it comes to health, they still go through like a cleaning process, right? They see errors, they change things. There's interim mortality systems in the countries that we work in, but they tend to have multiple errors. So governments, they don't want to make this data public, because they say, it can be misleading. If someone looks at it now and then looks at it in 2 months and realizes that the data has changed, it's going to raise more questions than answers. And that's very valid, because the data itself, it was miscoded, it was duplicated, and so on. So I think while it can be done, is not ideal, I'll say, to connect live or data sources to the platform, just because, again, you may not want that data to be immediately public. before reviewing it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question from Joel. He's asking if you have any initiatives in the US, especially now that hospitals are mandated to publish their price schedules.
So not not from the Data for Health initiative and not with the specific application of VIA data. Most of our work is in low and middle income countries internationally. We have not done any applications in the US with this tool. There is an overdose prevention program as part of Vital Strategies that works in different states and cities in the US. But I believe they haven't, their focus is slightly different and haven't used this specific tool.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we are going to wrap it up soon.
Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you to the Topian team. Thanks, Joanna, for inviting me today, but also thank you to Michael, Ocaranza, Susan, and all the other developers that have worked with us through making this possible. I think it's we're very happy with the tool, and I think our country government partners are also happy with having this option. And thank you so much for the work.
Yeah, thank you too. Your mission is great, and for us it's an honor to be part of it. I am suggesting that we wrap it up. I just dropped some links in the chat.
So, Joanna, I do have a little news that I'd like to share with the community. If that's okay.
Oh yeah, sorry. I got slightly distracted from my technical issues, and I totally forgot for the community announcements and sharing. So please go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm glad to report that CKAN has been selected as one of the 25 open source projects that is being supported by the National Science Foundation. So we are working with, we just got selected a week and a half ago. We are company that here working with the University of Pittsburgh, who is operating the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center. We'll be working closely with the CKAN custodians to really make try to take the CKAN ecosystem to the next level, so it becomes a vital part in the plan of government data initiatives and infrastructure. We should be able to share the news, hopefully, Joanna, on the CKAN.org blog site. And yeah, it's very exciting, and we're coordinating with Bitoken and Link Digital on harmonizing it with the CKAN protocol. So yes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. My internet connection wasn't stable, so I couldn't capture everything. I can see in the chat that, let me just scroll. Yeah, Adria wanted a link to the source repo for the extension, and Luis dropped a link. So if I'll add it to the meeting doc, so in notes, so you can also find it later on. Let's do a quick closing. I apologize for my technical issues. There was some heavy rain here, which affected the internet connection, so I really apologize. If you want to present the CKAN Monthly Live, you can fill out the form in the meeting doc and we'll contact you. I dropped a link in the chat, so you can find it there. You can find it also in the meeting doc. If you want to suggest a topic for the next meetup, there is a special document. It is available both in chat and in the meeting doc. If you need help with CKAN or you want to get involved, you can go to our website. There is a community page at CKAN.org community. There are many ways you can get involved. You can chat with the CKAN community on Gitter. You can ask questions on Stack Overflow, and for security-related issues, please email security@ckan.org. Of course, do not forget to follow us every Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. This way you will get notifications for future events. We have a new LinkedIn page. I will share a link in the chat right now. There we go. And yeah, thanks for your patience. I was happy to see all of you. Thanks to Luis for the great presentation. And I'll be happy to see you next month.
Thank you. See you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.